Mr. Deegan, there's a new radio explosion, you said in the presentation, in our times. What do you mean with that?
So in the UK, pretty much on digital radio and online that supports it, we've doubled the number of stations that are available on analogue. So if you're a successful broadcaster, you've got twice as many people to compete with. And that's because the strength of some of those platforms. So in the UK, DAB is very strong. About 20% of all radio listening is to DAB, and about 35% of people listen to DAB at some point. Obviously, internet radio is there. Digital TV, listening to radio on digital television is quite strong as well. So suddenly, there's enough audience on these platforms for these radio stations to exist and compete with each other.
You also said radios will not compete on platforms, they will compete on content. What does that mean?
So there's a bit about the industry working together. So we've got enough to argue about, competing with content, to worry about arguing about platforms as well. So in our territory, both the BBC and commercial radio work together on DAB. We work together on a thing called Radio Player, which brings together all stations in a simple player online. And that's as well as on the web. That's going to be on mobile and connected TVs as well. So whilst the platforms are important, it's about being in the places where listeners live. Large number of listeners listen on DTV or DAB. Well, our job is to make sure that our station's there and that they can really listen to what we're doing. Where we compete is against content. So whilst the BBC are our friends in Radio Player and digital radio, they're our mortal enemies for content, where we try and get the most audience.
And how can we use as a radio station the interactivity of new media for our commercials?
I think the great thing about radio is its connection with listeners. We've always had that, whether that's people ringing in. You don't have many TV stations that get stickers put in the back of cars, people who are so connected to their radio output. So I think with online and with social media, that's just the next stage of doing that. So whether that's making sure listeners are registered, so you've got better demographic details, whether they're giving more information about themselves or what they're interested in, and actually the radio station responding. Like if you look at TV on social networks, they have kind of similar large numbers that we have, but they are rubbish at replying back to their viewers because they've never had to do it before. They're broadcast. They talk to people through the TV and they never worry about what comes back. Radio, we've always done that, from answering the phone to replying on Twitter or on Facebook, and I think that's where some of our success is. And the stronger those relationships we have with them, the easier it then becomes to monetize.
Thank you, Matt Deegan.